Hello everyone and welcome to their Teamfight Tactics Guide. Today we're going to cover probably the most requested topic that I've seen at least in the last few months, and that is how to transition from one build to another, and when do I know when I should transition or pivot or not. I've put off making this guide mainly because this is probably one of the more nuanced skill sets to have when you're a Teamfight Tactics player, but not only that, it requires a large amount of experience in trying to transition and failing before you finally get how it works. So in today's guide, I want to break down in very simple terms what transitioning is, what leads into it, and how to recognize when you should transition at all. Now in the beginning of the game, you're going to be looking for just raw strength. You want to be able to deal as much damage as you possibly can and have the most effective team comp you possibly can. This is kind of like the Wild West of the game. You're not looking for the most ideal synergy. You're not even looking for what's in the meta. You're really just looking for units that you can get to 2-star, and you put out small little synergies, even using things like Wild or 2 or 4 Knights, whatever you can get your hands on to make sure you're able to win in the early stages of the game and maintain your HP. However, when you get to mid and late stages, you're then starting to look for the ideal comp. That being said, I think you should be comfortable with the fact that you're probably almost never going to get a perfect or ideal composition by the end of the game. There's always going to be 1 or 2 deviances that put you off a little bit from getting the perfect textbook composition. However, you can get close every game if you're planning properly. The general idea of transitioning is you currently have a build that you want to go towards, but you cannot get there just yet. Maybe the units you're looking to put out aren't leveled yet, and you're at a stage of the game where 1-star units would be too much of a detriment, or maybe you don't even have the core foundation of that build, but you're almost there, and you're saving up the units you need to transition into that build. There's different kinds of transitioning, some of them more drastic than others, but the general idea is balancing your transition around what I call linchpin units. These are usually 4 or 5 cost units in the game that are the core or fundamental unit that builds a certain composition. In 9.17, this is going to be Evelyn for demon builds, Swain and Gnar for shapeshifter builds, and for hypercarry builds, it's like a Draven or a Jinx. So usually you want to wait until you get these linchpin units and then work your way backwards to make sure you can build that properly, because realistically, you don't really want to run that build until you get the linchpin unit. Personally, for me, I like to balance this around the first linchpin unit that I get to 2-star. So if I find a Gnar and I get him to 2-star, then I feel like I'm going to go either a Yordle build or a shapeshifter build. If I can find an Evelyn or a Swain, maybe Evelyn hits 2-star and I'm not currently running demons, I want to work my way towards demons because I finally got that core fundamental unit that allows me to move in that direction. Speaking of working towards a new direction, let's talk about today's video sponsor, PlayVig. PlayVig is a free app that you can download and run in the background while you're playing games like Teamfight Tactics, and it'll give you ways to win real cash and gift cards. You can run solo quests on your own while you're playing, or compete against others on leaderboards to gain even bigger prizes. PlayVig is an easy way to gain extra cash while you're playing Teamfight Tactics, but also works with various other popular games right now. To get started, use my affiliate link down in the description below to sign up, make an account, and get yourself earning. Now, a lot of times you can transition over several rounds if you have to, but planning is a big part of transitioning properly. You want to start taking stock of the units that you have in your build right now that can currently be removed, and then have in your mind which ones you're going to swap when the time comes. So once you've decided that you're going to transition, start looking at the units you have and start crossing off ones that you know you're not going to keep. For example, I might be running a Shen because early on I could not find a unit that could be a front line. I didn't get Knights, I couldn't find a Braum, there were no Guardians that I can grab, and so Shen can be a good stand-in unit because he has the dodge and generally pretty good statistics that allows him to take a beating if he needs to. But in my mind, I know that I'm not going to be going ninjas, I'm not going to be going blade masters, so he's a unit that I know I'm going to be swapping out of my build when the transition happens. Now, knowing when to transition when you have a transition in mind is a bit of an experience thing, but a lot of times the way I look at it is I currently have a stand-in build that's on the board. On my bench, I'm building up units for a transition that I want to make to a stronger build that currently won't be as good as my transition build. What I like to do is, if I'm not being currently pressured, which means I'm not losing rounds, no one's buying aggressively and forcing me to lose a lot of HP, or maybe I'm in the top first, second, or third place of the match, I'm not being forced to transition right away, so I can econ and try to take my time. But a lot of times, if you feel like your current stand-in build starts to lose its strength and you're losing pretty hard, I would start to force that transition sooner rather than later, because it allows you to get the gold that the stand-in build is wasting back into your income, and you can start re-rolling to finish the new build that you're looking to put out. Additionally, it's really important to understand what the build you're going for requires to work properly. For example, say you want to go for a 4 ranger build. You currently have 3 rangers and you're waiting for the 4th. So obviously you don't want to put out just 3 rangers and if one of them is not leveled up, or maybe you're waiting for an Ashe to get that into the build. It's important to understand what makes that build tick, which is really just having strong tank units up front to keep the rangers alive, and then having enough CC or beef in the build to make sure that you can slow down the fight for the rangers to deal their consistent damage. Another big part of what makes ranger builds work well is Ashe being a hyper carry and making Ashe stun on hit with a glacial. Ranger builds used to be having the Braum, but now that we have Pantheon to replace that, you want to make sure you have the 2 glacial bonus on the Ashe, as this is one of the main reasons why you have a good amount of CC in the build, especially if you put a Rage Blade on the Ashe. So say you don't actually have the Sejuani, which usually stands in that role of giving Ashe the glacial bonus, you want to find a glacial unit you can put out. Even if it's a Lysandra or a Volibear, it still gives that 2 glacial bonus that is so crucial for Ashe stunning the targets. Likewise, Sejuani provides a very large AoE teamfight CC ultimate that slows the fight down to allow the non-bursty but consistent DPS rangers to deal their damage without dying. And so if you don't get the Sejuani that has that ultimate, you can have stand-in units like Gnar or Cho'Gath that have very large teamfight CC ultimates that do about the same thing as the Sejuani and can stand in until you get that Sejuani in there to get a very viable 2 glacial bonus for the Ashe. And this goes along the same path. Say you're building a demon shapeshifter build or any shapeshifter build, which usually means you want a Gnar, a Shyvana, and a Swain to get a 3 shapeshifter bonus and deal the amount of damage that they deal. But say you have Gnar and Shyvana, but you haven't found that Swain yet. Even if it means throwing in a Nidalee or an Elise, which generally don't survive in the late stages of the game, it still means you'll get that 3 shapeshifter bonus, which is very important for that build to work. And that allows you to have that transitional state before you get the Swain to top off your build. So as you're going along in the game, you want to be looking for those linchpin units, the 4 or 5 cost units that are built into the builds that require them to work. And once you find them, hold on to them and see if you can get them to 2-star and start planning your transition towards that direction. Being a very skilled teamfight tactics player is really all about being flexible with what comes your way and having a deep understanding of what builds require in order for them to be effective. And if you can't find the optimal replacement, sometimes you have to improvise and make something work. Another example might be you're moving into a mid to late game hard carry sorcerer composition, which usually means a lot of your damage is going to come from like the Aurelion Soul or the Karthus. You have the caster items that Aurelion Soul might need, the Shojins, the Rage Blade, the Death Cap, the Morellonomicon, whatever it may be, but you don't have the Aurelion Soul yet. What you want to do is see if you can build something close to what that build has, and then wait for the Aurelion Soul to come online. Say you have the items that you're right, but you don't have the Aurelion Soul, you can even put in something like a Kennen that has an AoE ultimate that will apply those on-hit effects, and then have him in that place until you get the Aurelion Soul, and you can swap that in. Always find ways to get close to what you're trying to build, and then use your economy to work towards getting the correct unit to replace that slot. And through the same vein, it's important to remember that realistically, items don't have to be on one unit for the entirety of the game. Say you're going for a late game hyper carry build, which means you're going to be using Hurricane, Rapid Fire Cannon, Rage Blade, Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge, very single target damage dealing physical carry items, but you don't have that physical carry just yet. So you know you're working towards a Draven, you can put it on a unit. I mean, I've even put like Draven carry items on a Shen just because I needed them on something that's going to deal damage. You can even stick them on an Assassin, maybe maybe Kha'Zix is using those items for the time being. And then once you get the unit, you can sell that unit and move them over to the correct unit you're looking for. You're always in this state of transition, and you're looking to hold on to what you can and then build towards it until you finally achieve what you're looking for. Thanks for tuning in. That covers this video on transitioning and pivoting. This is kind of a general overview of what it is and what causes it. You're looking for those basic linchpin units, working your ways backwards from that unit, and then trying to find stand-ins that get you closer and closer until eventually you can make that transition. As always, like, comment, subscribe, yada, yada, yada. Check me out on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'll see you in the next one.